Peace, peace, Omar. What's going on? Omar is bright and early, bright and early. Wait. Just waiting for the other peoples to show up and we can get it popping. Get it popping. Peace, Andre. All right. Just waiting on a couple more people. We can get it popping. Peace, perfection. All right, Wacky J 2012. All right, y'all. Let me calm my ass down with this music. Get it popping here. All right. More people are coming in, so here we go. Let's get it popping. All right, the threefold path of Luciferianism. Okay, also known as Triad of the Morning Star. What is the threefold path? Well, first of all, the threefold path consists of three different paths. Okay? Dang computer want to alert me on every damn football game on the planet Earth here. Look at this. All right, hopefully it stopped. All right, so it consists of liberation, illumination, and apotheosis or apotheosis. All right. So those are the three paths of Luciferianism. Some of this is based upon the concepts shared by Michael W. Ford and others. This is very essential, especially for those on the left-hand path. Now, essentially, as we know, the left-hand path is a path of self-deification, which is in unison with Luciferianism. Okay? It's a path of self-deification. It's a path of self-transformation and elevation, a path of challenging yourself and things of that nature. So when we look at Luciferianism, we're looking at it through the eyes of the left-hand path and how it correlates to us walking this path. Okay? Now you have to remember, Lucifer in essence is just a concept of an adversary, coming more so from monotheistic religion. Okay? According to the Bible, Lucifer is the adversary of God. Not really true, because according to the Bible concept, God created all things, including the devil. Not really an adversary. However, according to religious belief, that's what we have today. An adversary is a person who goes against the grain of society, of religion, of traditions, cultural customs, things of that nature. So when we're walking on a left-hand path and you walk looking at life as your own God, keep in mind that the purpose of that is not to be a hot-headed or hot-shot, big-headed ass person because you think you've got all this knowledge and wisdom and you've overcome a lot and now you think you're hot shit. The purpose is to master the self, and in the process, when you master yourself, you start to understand something. One of the things you understand is that you learn to be humble. I didn't say weak and with humility. No. I said humble, meaning you don't have to boast or brag. The more knowledge you get, you actually become more silent, which is in contrast to this conscious crap community that we're dealing with today. They consistently and constantly want to talk, diarrhea of the mouth. That's in total contrast to a person who is learning to master themselves, reaching to that point and level to be that master. You understand that silence, my friends, is essential. And there's a reason for that. Because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Which keeps you humble to the point that you realize, well, as much as I think I know now, there's that much more information, that much more wisdom, and that much more application I have to apply to my life to get to another level. Okay? So the work is consistently and constantly going and growing all the time. So let's get into this. Okay? Let's get into the threefold path of Luciferianism and how it applies to your daily life. Okay? First of all, the first path is liberation. Liberation is the first step in adapting and applying Luciferian philosophy. Upon identifying specific restrictive beliefs or habits which restrict personal insight, strength, and positive results. So what you do is you choose one of the 11 points of power, which at this point, let's go over the 11 points of the Luciferian points of power, since it actually segues from liberation to this point, so you understand why you pick one of the points to begin your path of liberation. The first Luciferian point of power is Lucifer represents the light of intellect, wisdom and power unique to everyone with the courage to ascend to this responsibility. Intellect is essential, y'all, especially on this path. You should be acquiring more knowledge, wisdom, so your intellect can expand. Number two, the symbol of the adversary is that of the self-liberator and spiritual rebel who inspires self-evolution. So essentially, you taking a walk in the path on the left-hand side, left-hand path, are walking the path of the adversary, which is to liberate yourself from the nonsense that you've been taught by society, by the education of society, by the media of society, by your own family's programming, your own parents' programming, your own cultural programming, your own tribal programming, your own ethnic group, etc., etc. And your whole focus is to liberate yourself from these things. Because if you don't, then essentially what you do is continue living a restrictive, habitual pattern of life. Lucifer, number three, Lucifer represents the balanced torchbearer of Venus. The light bringer as the morning star, which we spoke about recently, which is the body of light, and the night bringer as the evening star, which is the shadow body. The adversary symbolizes the spark of consciousness, which questions everything, including, and more importantly, and more difficulty in questioning yourself. So we question everything, but more importantly, question yourself. So the adversary symbolizes a spark of consciousness, which questions everything, manifesting the individualistic path with accountability only to the self. You only answer to yourself. So when somebody wants to put you on the spot and try to make you feel like you have to respond to them, or you have to fall to their questioning, then you're falling back under the programming and the system of somebody being your authority figure and you just humbling, or, well, more like becoming meek or weak to that person. No, you only are accountable to yourself for your ways, actions, for all of the activities in your life, for your thought process. You're only accountable to yourself. You don't have to respond to anybody. That's your choice if you do, but do not feel like you have to. Your responsibility is not to fall under somebody else's authority figure. You're the sole authority of your life, so you don't have to answer anything to anyone. Number 5, the fall of Lucifer symbolizes the liberation of the mind from the slave mentality and occurs to explore and master the darkness within. This number 5 to me is one of the most key points of the 11 Luciferian points of power. Let me say this again. The fall of Lucifer, symbolic, it's only a symbolic thing, symbolizes the liberation of the mind from the slave mentality and occurs to explore and master the darkness within. One may not offer the illumination of the morning star without the wisdom of the darkness within. This, my friends, is one of the most difficult concepts for people to understand. They're always seeking enlightenment. They're always seeking illumination, but fail to realize you can only truly become illuminated or enlightened by going within to your own darkness and understanding that part which you ignore every day. If you're unwilling to take that journey to the dark side of yourself, then all you're doing is talking a lot of shit and spewing forth a bunch of conscious rhetoric with no pot to piss in, no real life goals other than talking crap. I know too many conscious people who brag and boast, and their inner world is so jacked up, but they'll tell you all this wisdom, all this knowledge. They'll tell you how to transform yourself, how to meditate, how to wash your ass. They'll tell you all these things, but yet they themselves don't have a pot to piss in. They themselves are living in grandma's basement. Not that it's wrong, but if you're 50 years old still living in grandma's basement, you just a lazy ass fool. I don't care what excuse you make for that. You're just a lazy ass fool, dude. And the more people take this stance and make these conscious idiots more responsible for their rhetoric, confront them on their rhetoric, confront them on what they try to promote, the less garbage we would listen to and have infecting the minds of people. And then we can start giving people their own keys that they already possess to master and control their life. But you have to be able and willing to take that trip into the darkness. Without that, without that, you're only fooling yourself. Because in the darkness is where your habits have been formed from trauma, pain, wounds, and things of that nature that you've never dealt with, because society even makes you think you have to run from these things. You've never dealt with, and because of that, they just keep forming these habitual patterns that create this vicious cycle or vicious loop in your life where you keep self-destructing. That's because we're so hell-bent on summoning the next demon, but can't even summon the demons within ourselves that we have to learn to master. Let's continue. Number 6, the adversary represents rebellion with purpose, wisdom, strength, and power. When you are walking the path, the left-hand path, as an adversary, you're rebelling against the norm, but you're doing it with a purpose. That is to gain more wisdom, more strength, and more power over yourself. Not so much people outside of you and things like that. That's all dandy if you could do that. And that massages the ego, makes you feel good. It's more important to do it over yourself. Get that wisdom, strength, and power and utilize it to master yourself. Number 7, Lucifer represents the courage and fortitude to acquire healthy self-love, leading to the responsibility of honoring your temple of mind, body, and spirit. Notice healthy self-love. That's a key point, because a lot of people will say, I love self. And these are the idiots you hear on social media. It's about the self, and love the self, and twerk your nipple self, and love my body, and love my this, and love. Listen, fools. That's all superficial and dandy. When you truly have healthy love for yourself, it's because you've questioned your own bullshit and can see how much bullshit you're really about and learn to control and master that shit, which then makes you love yourself more, because now you've confronted your bullshit so it doesn't continue affecting you, which gives you a healthy self-love. So you really know the truth about honoring your temple, your mind, body, and spirit. Not some fake body positive consciousness that's moving around. If you're obese, you're obese. There's not much body positive we can deal with when it comes to that nature. It's unhealthy. You're putting undue strain on your heart and everything else. Deal with that fact and reality. Stop making excuses, and everybody wants to find some stupid ass body conscious positive movement, and yet they're dying from within because they're not taking care of their health. That doesn't mean that you can't be thick and nice, but if you got excessive fat around your heart and other areas of your body, you're in jeopardy. It's only a matter of time before the bomb goes off and you realize you're in jeopardy. So I'm all for body positive, but at the same time, I'm not saying that you can't be body positive, but be conscious that you don't have to stay at a certain weight if it's causing health problems. You have to make a change. Number 8, to become your own God, you must have the wisdom and strength to govern and guide your life as if your mind is to survive beyond the mortal body. That's real positive thought there. But how do we apply this? Okay, to become your own God, you must have the wisdom. You acquire wisdom through a lot of knowledge, but applying the knowledge is what leads to wisdom. Everybody's like, knowledge is power. Bullshit. Knowledge is information. Wisdom is power. And I've said this for years. You can go back to some of my old videos and see that I said this. Knowledge is information. But when you apply that knowledge, it leads to wisdom from the experience you get from applying that knowledge. Then that wisdom through that experience expands your consciousness. Okay? So to be your own God, you must have the wisdom and strength to govern and guide your life as if your mind is to survive beyond the mortal body. Meaning, stop thinking like a mortal individual that you're going to die. I'm not saying we're not going to die. What I'm saying is stop putting this expiration date on yourself before you're even there. Live your life as if you're eternal, infinite. When you do that, you push yourself and challenge yourself to greater heights so that when you do cease to exist in the mortal body, your consciousness remains infinite. You don't lose that consciousness. You don't reincarnate, as some people would say. Number 9, indulgence with restraint. Love for the deserving and disdain for those undeserving. All right, this is key right here. As a Luciferian, we indulge, but we do it with restraint. What does that mean? Well, as opposed to Satanists to just indulge and go buku buck wild crazy and have no limit to their debauchery, a Luciferian indulges, but they restrain. Meaning, listen, you want a nice, sexy ass female, let's say, right? And she's into the occult, you into the occult, y'all want to practice sex, magic, everything else. Cool. However, that doesn't mean just because you got her, now you go and get 5 other females to do the same thing that you did with her. Because essentially what you're doing is just dipping around and you're creating a cycle where one of y'all could get some serious STDs or anything else. You restrain yourself from excessive indulgence, meaning you know when the limit is up or when you know when you shouldn't go any further. Even though temptation is great, you stop because you have the power to restrain yourself. Even though you're buku badass horny, you know when to stop. Okay? Second to that, it says you love those who deserve your love, but you have a disdain for those who are undeserving. Not everybody deserves your kindness, y'all. Not everybody deserves you caring about them. Some people are very undeserving, and we have disdain for people who are undeserving. We don't give a crap about a lot of those people who are undeserving because many of them are self-destructive and they created their own problems and they want to blame everybody else for it. You can't blame other people for your own shit. You created it, so take responsibility and do something about it. Okay? Number 10. Lucifer represents the insight that every act, no matter if perceived as selfless, is really at its core a selfish act. Even if helping others is your passion, the brain still receives a chemical reward triggered by the act. Therefore, many consider that doing good deeds in society may bring you closer to God. That's really a lot of times why people do so-called selfless acts, unselfish acts. It's really not because you're doing it because you really want to do it. You're doing it because somewhere in your mind you've been programmed to think you get some brownie points with God, society, community, or whatever because you just did some nice little, so-called selfless act. Bullshit. You did it because you wanted some props somewhere, okay? And usually it's because you want some brownie points to get into some mystical, illusory heaven that really doesn't exist, other than in your mind. Recognize you are selfish. Then see this fact in all others while observing. Accept this as a reality, and then when you have that knowledge that most people are selfish, I would say 99% of people are selfish at one point or another, then you are able to make choices that would benefit not only yourself, but your loved ones when possible. Loved ones is a key term there. That doesn't mean everybody. That means the ones who are in your inner circle, whether it's some of your family, whether it's your loved ones that, could be your man, your woman. It could be your peeps that you grew up with, that y'all been strong and tight and loyal to each other. You define what your loved ones are. Usually it's your inner circle, okay? To become God is to fully understand that you possess the power to create and sustain your path in life and illuminate the life of self-determined potential. Now we'll go back to liberation and get to this point, since we went over the 11 Luciferian points of power. Upon identifying specific restrictive beliefs or habits which restrict personal insight and strength and positive results, choose one point of power to apply first. Meaning, out of those 11 Luciferian points of power, choose one of them to start trying to apply it in your daily life. Choose one, and then from there you start to expand, add another after a while, another after a while. Okay? Some points will be easier than others. You should develop a simple strategy of applying a roadmap towards breaking the restrictions and leftover guilt-ridden thoughts ingrained in our subconscious since birth. Woo! All right. That was strong. Now let me repeat that now. You should develop a simple strategy of applying a roadmap towards breaking the restrictions and leftover guilt-ridden thoughts ingrained in our subconscious since birth. Now, see, since we were conceived, when we came into the physical, since you were young, you've been given a program, and it began with your parents. Unfortunately, it began with your parents. Your parents, however, were giving you what they were programmed by society and their family. And because of that, you have guilt still embedded in you over some of the things you've done in life, over some of the actions and the behaviors. You have guilt, okay? And that guilt really comes from society and religion and your family. And if you think back, I can't pinpoint what your individual one is. You have to do the work to figure that out. But everybody has this. Okay? Some of us have been ingrained how a relationship is supposed to be according to our parents, grandparents, whatever, society. This is a relationship. This is how you define it. This is what you do. And if you find yourself tiptoeing outside of that or finding yourself trying to get outside of that, you have guilt-ridden thoughts, which then lead to destructive behavior, which then destroys everything else around you. So you have to really start questioning yourself, what do I feel guilty about? What really do I feel guilty about in my life? Because you have to understand, each and every one of us feels guilty about something. Since our childhood, since the programming began in our childhood. I don't care what. Listen, people can tell me right now, oh, I've broken everything, I'm past that. And I still will find that people still have some level of programming that they feel guilty about. Because this is years of programming. Okay, a lot of us on this video, I would venture, on this lecture here, would venture are 20 or older. Most of us are 20 or older on this video. So regardless, if you're 20 to 40 to 50, you have 20 years of programming, 30, 40, 50, whatever. That's years of programming. You think you're going to break that overnight. Impossible. It's impossible. Just by the fact that we still use the Gregorian calendar that is based upon a religious system tells us that we're still religious. I mean, not religious in the sense that we follow religion, but we're still programmed by religion. It's still there. And no matter what, we have to go deep in there to break that programming. Liberation requires consistent and conscious determination to break certain thought patterns and by self-determined focus of will. Let me repeat that because this is very important right here. Liberation requires consistent. That means you don't take a day off, a week off, a month off. Well, you can take a day off, but weeks off, months off, and a year off. It requires consistent and conscious determination to break certain thought patterns, and I would add certain behavioral patterns, and by self-determined focus of will. You have to have a strong will. You have to be determined. You have to have willpower to say, I'm going to break these I'm going to break these habitual patterns, these mental restrictive patterns, these guilt-ridden thoughts. I have to really have some determination to break this. I have to use my willpower to break this. I cannot half-ass it. Now, you have to have self-determined focus of will to establish and create a new habit, which will begin the subtle path of liberation, illumination, and apotheosis. According to some psychologists, it takes roughly 25 days, less or more, give or take, to create a new habit. So if you consistently apply your new thought pattern, trying to create a new thought pattern, trying to reprogram yourself for 25 straight days, it will create a new pattern, a new programming in your mind by the programmer, you, a new programmer. The only programmer who should have been programming your mind is you. It takes about 25 days, give or take. And if you consistently apply one of these, let's say 11 points of power, and you say, I'm going to choose number 3 or whatever, then you're able to apply that consistently every day, strengthen your will and focus and determination to transform these programmed thoughts. You will create a new pattern in your mind. Once you do that, like I said, you create a new habit, so you're able to apply and adapt 11 points of power, uniquely with the strategy of igniting the gift of Lucifer, which is the black flame. Black flame, the flame of intellect, creative consciousness, and the will to do. Key point. Luciferians, or those on the left-hand path, do not submit or worship anyone or anything. Luciferians develop personal power and reject the myth of the original sin. I reject that wholeheartedly. Luciferians do not worship any deity or devil. So if a Luciferian comes telling you that, listen, a true Luciferian tells you, well, if an individual says they're Luciferian and they still worshiping some shit, it really ain't Luciferian. They like the concept, but they still holding on to religion. And the part of religion they're holding on to is worshiping something external. They're missing the whole point of being Luciferian. Let me repeat. Luciferians do not worship any deity or devil. We consider submission to another deity as a demeaning and self-destructive acknowledgement of defeat. Repeat. I'm going to say this one more time because this is really important. Luciferians do not worship any deity or devil. We consider submission to another deity as a demeaning and self-destructive acknowledgement of defeat. Meaning you are now somebody's slave. You are now under somebody's rule. Somebody's controlling it. Not happening. Apotheosis is the process of becoming a living embodiment of the Luciferian spirit. Respecting powers and forces in the world which may be greater than us in this world is a natural recognition in all which can drive and inspire. However, honoring and respecting and recognizing energies or perceived powers is proper if unique thought patterns are acknowledged, such as worship and bending the knee is the kiss of death, and the subconscious urge towards weakness and self-destruction. Meaning, if you understand these energies, archetypes, and you understand that they really are symbolic of metaphors, symbols, of characteristics, attributes, powers, consciousness that you have latent inside of you. It's already there within you. And you wear the deific mask, meaning you embody and become this very energy or archetype that you are addressing or facing. Then you start to understand the difference between worshiping and bending and groveling, which basically is your kiss of death. It's basically your subconscious will lead you back down, the program will reactivate it, and you're back to weakness and destroying yourself and following somebody else's bullshit. Luciferians strive to uniquely begin to perceive and view the world as living embodiments of Lucifer, Lilith, Set, Setech, Kali, whatever, and other deific masks and models to identify with. Lucifer as a name of power calls forth traits of denying dogmatic religious teachings and embracing a philosophy that inspires positive self-esteem, responsibility, and insight. Lucifer as a name recalls a strong individual who questions everything, using knowledge and thought to apply strategy. The name of Lucifer represents pride, which is in balance with the discipline or logic, and self-liberation, a motivator and challenging power which balances this world. We as Luciferians do not submit, again, case in point, it's going to repeat again, we as Luciferians do not submit to any deity, but hold the powers which they represent, meaning we embody and become the power which these deities represent as masks of knowledge. Lucifer is the antithesis of restrictive dogma and the religion of blind faith. The second fold path, or the second of the threefold path on Luciferianism is illumination. The first one was liberation. You first have to liberate yourself before you can lead to illumination. Illumination is the second step in actualizing self-determined goals, often in attaining knowledge and strategies towards self-awareness of how the use of will, desire, belief commands change according to our desire. Let me repeat this. Very important right here. Illumination is the second step in actualizing self-determined goals, often in attaining knowledge and strategies towards self-awareness of how the use of will, desire, belief commands change according to our desire. First of all, you have to have goals in life. If you don't have no goals, I don't know what to say. You got to have some goals in life. This is what leads you to even wake up in the morning, is the possibility of accomplishing another step towards your goals. Whether they're short-term goals, long-term goals, you should have goals, okay? And you find ways to actualize these goals. You utilize your self-awareness, your consciousness, to activate that will, that desire and belief, so that you can change whatever's in your life that's not working for you, change it to create a new pattern so you can actually reach your goals. Luciferian philosophy, upon identifying specific restrictive beliefs or habits which restrict personal insight, strength, and positive results, choose one point of power to apply first. Some points will be easier than others. The adversary is a feared symbol known as the devil, Satan, Ahriman, Azazel, Lucifer, Set, Setech, Kali, on and on and on. Lucifer is the bringer, or more precisely, bearer of light, associated with the planet Venus, which is known as the morning and evening star. Luciferians can validate that when the 11 points of power are applied consistently, the individual begins to not only establish goals and insight, but most importantly, the Luciferian begins to think like the adversary or one of the many deific masks depicted in symbolic representation. So it doesn't have to be Lucifer. It could be any one of the adversaries you're familiar with. Kali. It could be Sekhmet. Okay? It could be Setech, Set. It could be Lucifer. It could be Baum Sendi. All these have points or attributes or characteristics of being an adversary to the norm. Some way, shape, form, or fashion, they're an adversary to the norm. There's many more. You have to do your own research. For example, you could go and even utilize a modern concept, utilizing a fictitious character like Thanos of Avenger Infinity War. Thanos is the adversary to the Avengers and the whole universe. But people didn't understand the real concept of why Thanos would want to eliminate half the universe. Because here comes all the programming and the conditioning and being so compassionate and caring. Yeah, okay. So you can utilize that. You could utilize the Sith. The Sith are a perfect representation of the Luciferian philosophy in a modern day concept through the Star Wars saga. Okay? To think as a light bearer or Lucifer is to rebel against dogmatic thought and to gain the awareness that we not only redeem ourselves, only we can redeem ourselves, but also have the power to think before speaking and acting. Key point, you should think before you speak and before you act out. Problem is, a lot of us like to speak and act out without even thinking. Then we end up in a predicament or situation that was self-created because we didn't think. Many times we react off of emotions. The worst thing you can do is make a decision while emotional. Many relationships go sour because an individual was emotional in the moment and just cut loose on shit that probably could have been said a better way, utilized a better way, and it destroyed everything. If only these individuals thought before they spoke and they acted out, shit would have been different. Lucifer, Satan, Kali, Lilith, Sekhmet, Setech, Hecate are but 4 examples or more examples of specific types of not only independent, terrifying, and blazing symbols or deific mass, which inspire individual balance between the creative and destructive cycles we find in nature. Luciferians lead by example. You should be the example of what it means to walk the left-hand path, to be a Luciferian, to be a Setian, to be Kali in the flesh. You should be the living example of these things. You should not half-ass it. Okay? Luciferians lead by example, compel change with consistent focus of energy to creating a moving force in the material world. You should be able to influence this material world through your willpower. Through your transformation, you should be able to influence this material world. It's not that hard. Illumination requires testing our strengths. You gotta challenge and test yourself every day, y'all. That's one of the principles on the left-hand path as well, Luciferianism. You gotta challenge yourself. Okay? Test yourself on everything. If you really want to know if you're past a certain programming or restrictive thought behavior, put yourself in the same situation that you kept repeating things over and over and see if you really change. Because if you haven't, you're going to end up doing the same shit over and over. Then you have to then question yourself, well, damn, I haven't really changed. Which means the work you've done is good, but you haven't gone deep enough into the abyss to really cause the change to take hold. Again, illumination requires testing our strengths and confronting our weaknesses. What do myself and Brother Beniti always talk about? It's great that you can do a money magic ritual to get finances up the ass. It's great that you could do a love spell on someone and you get them to love you. That's dandy. But at the end of the day, when you do all these great Harry Potter sorcery magic type shits, okay, the real magic comes down to confronting your weakness, confronting all these habitual patterns and these traumas and things that have created this person you are today, confronting that weakness to enhance personal wisdom and powers to becoming a god. That's what this is all about. Regular people, occult people, not so much left-hand path occult, people just regular doing occult work, magic work, are all concerned about doing a love spell for $175, or I can protect you from this person for $350. My peoples, if they really were about you and really wanted to help you, they would say, here's how to do it yourself. Here's how to make it happen yourself. Here's how to take that wand, that key, and make the magic happen for yourself. They won't do it. And the reason why they won't do it is because many of them have no other form of substance, no other form of finances, because they never got an education, they never got a training, or they never got some kind of license, whether it's masonry or whatever the case may be, bricklaying, it doesn't matter. They never did none of that. So they focus and rely off of you and feed off of your innocence many a times, or your super hyper energy that you just want something done. They feed off of that and rape you up the ass without grease. In so many vulgar words, that's literally what a lot of these people do. If they really cared about you, helping you, here's the key. This is how you work. This is what you do. You have the desire for this more than I do. So your desire should make this ritual work more than I could actually make it work for you, because it's you who really want something. I'm just this third leg trying to do some work for you that you could do yourself. And the problem is, so many people are programmed, they won't even see it like that. They'll go right back to that Babalao. They'll go right back to this Hogan. They'll go right back to this Mambo. They'll go right back to this Santero Santera. And keep playing this freaking habitual cycle pattern over and over and over and never break free because they're afraid to become a god. All right? Okay. There is a connection between Luciferian and traditional Satanism, yet there are many key differences. Satanism typically represents rational self-interest and the drive to make the most out of life, including the Epicurean indulgence in earthly pleasures. However, the symbol of Satan is simply the free-thinking, strategic, and passionate God of this world who recognizes all consciously aware beings are selfish and base, and that the laws of nature offer us guidance towards self-mastery. Luciferians identify often with Satan or Lucifer, more so Lucifer, as if a metaphysical power or an earthly inherent force. We have the duty to ourselves to learn the strategic thoughts and psychological moves which compel change. Satians, however, often call this lesser or greater black magic. Luciferians can also identify and understand this. Even when we walk in initiatory paths, including Setian, Typhonian, Thelemic, and even Hermetic schools of initiation. Okay? What you'll find is a lot of individuals who are Luciferian, many of them walk these initiatic paths. Well, there's Rosicrucian, Freemasonry, OTO, different things. They walk these initiatic paths because they understood that within these initiatic paths, there were different systems, different consciousness that would propel not only your self-work, but also propel you when you did this group work. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why people walk that. You already know how I feel on that. You don't have to be initiated for anything. However, if you want further insight or something, further insight for further knowledge on something, don't just sit on the periphery. Go in there and get what you need and then get back out. Don't fall back under the religion and the dogma if you go in there. Get what you need and get back out. Because if you don't, eventually you're going to get influenced again, and then next 6 months we're going to see you a religious fool again and shake our heads, be like, what the hell just happened? I've seen it. Benita has seen it, and many other people have seen these things happen over and over and over. All right? Luciferians often acknowledge the foundation of indulgence with self-restraint. Again, here we go back to the indulgence. We acknowledge the foundation of indulgence with self-restraint. Okay, we don't get buck wild without no restraint. We get buck wild, yes, but we have restraint. We know when to cut it short. We know when to say, okay, I'm getting borderline dangerous now. You know when to cut it short before that. All right? Yet we seek to climb up the ladder of personal evolution, power and wisdom per our self-directed path. Luciferians understand that overall science is a technical definition which is identical with our understanding of magic. Words themselves have immense power to cause change in this world. Yes, they do. I actually think I did a video months back about mantras, hekaus, chants, and how they really affect your world. How not only do they affect your world, they start the process by reprogramming your subconscious mind and helping you break obstacles that are in your subconscious mind. When you practice the art of mantras, hekaus, chants, things of that nature, it actually creates a new programming by breaking down the obstacles, depending on the mantra or chant or hekau you're using. All right? It does work in that way. And we, as people on the left-hand path, Luciferian, understand the power of words. Not only words, but vibrations, frequencies, tones, sounds, music. We understand that power and how it can affect your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, and your emotional body. Last step out of the threefold path of Luciferianism is apotheosis. Apotheosis is the third step in recognizing how Luciferian magic compels change and brings results in the validation of the potential inherent within yourself. Luciferian philosophy Now, by experience, insight, and overcoming by struggle the obstacles between you and your goals. Luciferianism can now be understood as potentially more than just a way of thinking. Validation ignites and opens the gates to a personal, subjective, and unshakable spiritual awareness called apotheosis. Upon identifying specific restrictive beliefs or habits which restrict personal insight, strength, and positive results, you will choose one point of power to apply first. Okay, that repeats itself over and over. Now, let me say this last part here. I was going to hold off to next week, but I have much more to talk about next week. All right. I'll just say this here. We'll probably go over it next week. Philosophy versus Luciferian magic or witchcraft. Luciferian witchcraft or magic. Okay. A path for the individual with practical tools for apotheosis, which is becoming God. Luciferians may utilize the philosophy over time without performing ritual ceremonies or magical workings. The philosophy you can utilize without having to do rituals. You just study those philosophies day in, day out. In that in itself, it starts to change your mind, change the thought patterns. Those who are attracted to the left-hand path may seek to determine if self-initiation is his or her will or desire. Within adversarial or Luciferian magic traditions, the individual uses a balance of rational self-determination, learning how to actualize a metaphysical framework, and attain knowledge and power via will, desire, and belief. That's a goddamn mouthful. Let me repeat that shit again, just in case y'all missed it. Luciferians may utilize the philosophy, the Luciferian philosophy, which is attributed to some of the 11 points of power, over time without performing ritual ceremonies or magical workings. Those who are attracted to the left-hand path may seek to determine if self-initiation is his or her will or desire. Within adversarial, meaning going against the grain, meaning these so-called adversaries in these mythologies and these stories and these traditions and these systems of magic or religious magical teachings, they utilize the adversarial current in their work. Within the adversarial Luciferian magic tradition, the individual uses a balance of rational self-determination. You have to have self-determination in every work you do on the left-hand path. Rational self-determination, learning how to actualize, how to actually make something real, a metaphysical framework, and attain knowledge and power via will, desire, and belief. The balance is using rational as well as skeptical thinking, as we do in our daily life, with the mytho-poetical, fantastical, and obsession-driven passion of channeling and directing our energies towards specific goals. To define this, simply rational thought is the key to commanding our world we live in to change in accordance with our will. In the ritual chamber, away from the eyes of others, we invest our will, desire, and belief in the fantasy of the powers we recognize as potentially supernatural. We have the potential to create and support our goals by validating results and developing a spiritually highly unique to the individual. Luciferians do not need others to agree or mass together in some religious fantasy. Stop looking for validation from other people. The validation that you need is your own. Okay? You don't need other people to validate you. Okay? You validate yourself. Stop looking to external people to validate who the hell you are. Let me say that again. Luciferians do not need others to agree or mass together in some religious fantasy. The strong individual shapes his or her own private spirituality and has no use in converting others. Key point. Don't get twisted. The work is not to convert other people to what you found is to be great, true with Luciferianism, with voodoo, with the real work is for yourself. It's a private spirituality of transformation, determining, bringing forth your power, your will, desire, determining your own goals, and actualizing that. Luciferianism is not a mystical religion. It is based on basic principles which hold power to become God of this world or Lord of the earth. Luciferians have the responsibility to evolve our way of thinking when needed, establishing discipline and the control of our thoughts and movements with meditation, using words to command and suggest what we wish to achieve, and strategic actions to conquer our obstacles. That is what Rex Mundi means. You are accountable for your present future. Start thinking as a rebel spirit. Apotheosis is the name of this road towards self-deification. Now, Antoine, you are crazy as hell. Okay, that's what you are, Antoine 777. All right, y'all. That was a basic discussion. Now comes time for the questions. What questions do you have about what we discussed? What's up, everybody? For all those I didn't say, peace to Omar, peace to Andre, peace to Wacky J 2012, peace to Perfection 933, the Nina Effect, peace, peace. Aset Ramesses, peace, peace. Dan S, peace. Allure Kush Goddess, peace, peace. Stray Panther. I am Shango, Antoine, and Omar. Again, questions. I know that's a lot. We went over a lot. But on those three folds are very essential, y'all. And I chose that for a reason. Because yes, while we're working with spirits and doing all this, we should not lose focus of what still the true work always is. We could work with spirits, we could go into voodoo, we could go to all this, but the true focus has always been self-deification, self-mastery, transforming, elevating, and challenging yourself. So hit me with a question, y'all. No questions? Everybody just, they got it? They understand it? All right, I knew somebody was coming. In a sense, yes, because Omar, some of the principles of Buddha at one time were more left-hand path. Then he found what would be called the middle path. So some of it, yes, was in its origin some left-hand path concepts. You have to basically elevate your consciousness to break this cycle, this vicious cycle we've created in life. And some of it leads to reincarnation. Some of it leads to a lot of those things. You have to be able to utilize your consciousness, expand that consciousness to break that vicious cycle that we repeat over and over and over. And though the way to do that is, like we said, use one of those basic steps we utilize or talked about first. If you're going to do liberation, where everybody starts at, pick one of the 11 Luciferian points of power. It's just an example. It doesn't have to be 11 points of power. It could be anything. You utilize one of these concepts or principles and you go at it. What I mean by that is this. You go at it by simply addressing What is your biggest weakness? We all love the strong and how powerful and dandy and delicious we are. But what is your biggest weakness? Everybody has some. I'm not asking y'all to type it in or nothing. I'm just saying, ask yourself, what is your biggest weakness? And then think about how that weakness has affected your life. Okay, Straight Panther 79. It wasn't really a book. It comes from, give me a second, hold on. Oh, it's called the Assembly of Light Bearers, okay? Which is the concept of these threefold path come from Michael W. Ford. Now, I created a PDF I created a document out of those principles so I could email it to y'all if you can't find the website. But basically, I could email that to y'all from there. It's basically those 3 steps are concepts that it's just not Michael W. Ford. As many Luciferians have come up with these steps. He just put them in a cohesive manner that we could understand. So that's essentially what it is, threefold path. And you can find that in assembliesoflight.org or .com, with one of them. But I have basically used it and created a document if you wanted that. All right, Wacky J 2012. The breakdown was essential because we can't just go off of people's concepts. I use this as a reference point, so y'all have some information to go check out, reference point to go look at things. But what's key is that you have to be able to break it down for yourself as well. You have to be able to go in there and whatever people are writing, whatever they're using or stating, you have to be able to break it down for yourself to terms that you can understand. So what I tend to do is utilize these as reference points and try to break it down from my experience to share with y'all. Some points may strike with y'all, some points may not strike at all, but it's a path of basically utilizing these references and then breaking it down from personal experiences and walking these paths. Share with y'all what grabs, and you utilize that in your personal growth and personalize it best for you. So that's the key when it comes to this path, whether it's left hand, whether it's Luciferian. Luciferian is just utilizing that system on the left hand path. Yes. Well, actually, that was point number 3, I think, apotheosis, which is basically becoming a god. Point 2 was illumination. Point 3 is basically utilize the powers without rituals. That what is that essentially saying is the powers, the 11 points of powers that I read off. Utilize those powers in daily life. Those 11 Luciferian points of power, utilizing those powers in daily life. You don't have to create rituals off of those 11 points of power. They're just principles, like so much like the 7 principles of Tahuti that you can just apply in everyday life. It doesn't have to be always a ritualistic thing. Your life should be ritualistic in the sense that if you're going to find yourself in a situation and you've been doing the work, you'll start to use this threefold path in the moment. You'll start to say, okay, how can I liberate myself from this bad habit or condition program or that I'm in again? I'm in this situation again. I have to find a way to liberate myself in this condition, in this moment, in this situation that I've repeated over and over. Now you will see how much your work has really manifested. So what you do is you'll ask yourself in that moment, how do I liberate myself from this vicious cycle in the moment? See, you're actually doing a ritual at that. You just don't have the candles and the altar and all that. You have the ritual in your mind, utilizing it in that moment. So what you do is you say, okay, how do I liberate in this moment? Let's say it's an issue and you got busted cheating again. I'm just saying, okay? Just saying. You got busted cheating. How do you break that cycle in the moment? Well, first of all, you have to question yourself, why the hell do I always cheat? 2, am I that weak that I have to cheat? Or 3, is there so much problems in my relationship that I feel like I have to cheat? So you start doing these steps to actually confront your shit. Confront your weaknesses at the moment. You don't make excuses. You don't blame. You don't say, I don't know this girl. You understand me? You say, okay, I got to take total responsibility for this situation I'm in again, so I can break this vicious habit that keeps affecting all this other stuff in my life. You have to understand, if you're not able to do that without being in a state of a ritual, then you're kind of weakening yourself. You have to be able to do these things on the moment. So, okay, you find a way to confront that, and you start to see, okay, how can I liberate myself in this moment? That creates an illumination. You start to illuminate the situation, and you get an understanding how to break the cycle that you're in. Your consciousness starts to expand because now you're thinking of ways to break this habit that you keep repeating. And then as you do that, it leads to apotheosis. You become God in that moment, insofar as you realize your bullshit, you take responsibility, and you create something in that moment to start the change from this crap. And necromancy is different. If you're in the heat of the moment where you want to do some necromancy and you've been working necromancy a while, you have to do rituals for that. That's a different thing. But what I'm saying is, remember, on the left-hand path, we don't get stuck on any one thing. You should never get stuck on necromancy, on Kemet, on voodoo. You utilize all of those systems or all of those methodologies to assist in your growth. It's not just to empower yourself and feel so great sorcery wise and create all this manifestation, that you want in the physical world. Because when you truly master your subjective world will create and alter the objective world. Your subjective world begins in the subconscious. So if you master your own shit, you may not realize that when you do that, automatically when you shift and change your subjective world, your objective world begins to change, and you start to attract the very things you did rituals for. But what many times blocks those manifestations from happening is here. That's the key thing. So it's not just, okay, well, I'm just doing necromancy for a while, and then, I'm just a necromancer now. And the left-hand path, that's just one thing you do out of many things you may utilize for your growth and transformation. You don't get stuck in any one thing. Always remind yourself of that. I got to keep following my spirit. So today you could be doing necromancy. Tomorrow you could be all the way in the Middle East at the Kaaba doing some Hajj. You don't know. But if you trust your spirit, wherever that spirit leads you, you're going to go. That's the key to this, is trusting your true power more, manifesting your true will more. That's the key. Andre, you're 100 on point. This path is definitely not for the faint of heart, period. Trina, all right. Well, I'll see you there tomorrow, girl. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale tomorrow. All right. Cause I am coming down to the ritual. So some of y'all who are going to ritual and I haven't met y'all before, physically met, you'll see me mañana. Wacky J 2012, just email me. I'm gonna put my email at the end of this. Just email me and I can send you these points, so you don't have to go write it all down. I can just send it to you, and then you can start from there. Shanice, yes, we do. We get stuck, especially on Kemet. Or listen, when I first started walking the cult conscious path, It was about 1987, 1988. A long time ago. And at that time, Islam was strong, but it was starting to fade out. A lot of people back then in the conscious community got into Islam. Okay. Whether it's Nation of Islam, Nation of Gods and Earth, whether it's Ansarullah, which is what I went into, that was strong, but then it started to fade, and Kemet started to grab more hold and attention. And there's a reason for that, because people want to identify with a homeland that we were stripped from or taken from. So, of course, Kemet plays a role, because that's when civilization was at its peak at one time, and it happened to just be in Northeast Africa and Kemet. So that held sway, and people hold on to that still, because when people really get into Kemet, a lot of it is more of an ego thing. It makes you feel superior, makes you feel dominant, original, great, sophisticated, whatever. But then they have a difficulty letting it go and not realizing, yes, that's wonderful back then, but how can I utilize that or update it for today and working my life for today? How can the concept of Set and Heru help me today? How can that be utilized today? Because if they can't, and many people in the conscious community can't do it, because they're gonna demean Set, make Set look like the bad guy, the devil, which is still religious concepts. They can't understand how to really utilize that concept of Set and Heru. Then what you're doing is just learning history. You're not really able to apply these concepts into everyday life to cause a change or transformation. So people hold on to a lot of these things because of that, and don't know how to expand outside of these things or connect the dots in many of these things, because many of these things are similar. True, very different. But there's so many similarities in a lot of these spiritual systems, conscious systems, whatever you want to call them, metaphysical systems, whatever. There's so many similarities in this, a lot of differences, but similarities that you can connect the dots and start to utilize them to grow. All right. Okay, so I apply this in my life and live a better life. What does Luciferian path offer to me after my death? I believe it was 0.3 of the points of power. You expand your mind, you expand your consciousness, become a living God. You become immortal after death. Meaning, a lot of people do not retain their total consciousness after death, falling back onto this incarnation cycle where they incarnate and they forget their past life. What happens when you do the work to expand that consciousness, to become the God over self and break the religions, the dogma, the things that bind you and hold you down, you break free to be able to expand your consciousness. So when death comes and you've done all this spiritual work, the necromancy, the Luciferian, all this, there's a different path you take after death. You bypass the beginning and you go to higher grounds where your continued education happens. Now, here's the thing. This is what we hear about in Kemet, is what we've been taught about in religion. No one truly knows what happens in the afterlife until you die. Period. No one truly knows what happens in the afterlife until you die. So to speculate about the afterlife is doing a disservice to your present life. And what do I mean by that? If you live your life to the fullest now and you do the work to become a God now, the afterlife will take care of itself. Until someone comes back and gives you a 1,000-page book on what really happens after death, which hasn't happened, never will happen, no one truly knows what happens until you experience it for yourself. The problem is many of us are afraid of death, so we try to avoid or stave it off instead of embracing death. That's what necromancy is about. You're prepared for death when the time comes. So understand that fact is you're living now. What Luciferian philosophy does is empower you as a god now. Your consciousness expands that can help you in the afterlife. Yeah, the 72 black-eyed virgins in Islam. Sounds like a lovely heaven. Lovely Jannah. Lovely. 72 black-eyed maidens, huh? I remember that when I was going through it. And why 72? Well, if you go into Kemet, Set had the 72 demons, or Sabal. You go into the Goetia, there's 72. And there's a reason for that. Always, that's one of my philosophies. And me and my brother Antoine, who was here earlier, and Beniti, we talk about that. You live your life to the fullest. You live your life as a god. You live your life as if you're immortal, because it's, in essence, if you live your life like you are limited or controlled or enslaved, then that's how you'll carry out your existence. You break the boundaries, you break the borders created by yourself and religion and family and society, and you live your life to the fullest as if you're an immortal god. Always remember that. You can ask the spirit or ancestor what happens after death. The problem is, what stage of death are they at? Because they're not only going to be able to give you an answer based upon the stage of death they're at. What does that mean? Meaning, depending on how recent they pass to how long they've been passed, they still are going through a school on the other side. They're still going through existence on the other side, and they're still transforming on the other side. So they're only going to be able to give you a limited answer based upon what they've gone through on the other side. And some of them don't even answer when you ask them all that. They'll give you vague details, not vivid details, because it's still something you have to experience for yourself. Nina, yes, it is possible that some children that remember their past lives had done a lot of work while they were in their past life here, and were able to master certain things to be able to retain some of that knowledge of their past life. But there's a reason why many of us do not or cannot remember our past life. That's because the past is the past. You're living now, so your full concentration should be on your path now. You're walking in life now, because where you are now is what makes a difference and a change to where you're going to go. The past led you to where you are today. Today, you make the change or the change for where you're going to go. Understand that concept. A lot of people, oh, in the past life, I was, Pharaoh, Big Cock, Amun. Who gives a damn? You're not Pharaoh Amun today. Okay, you got to understand that fact. That's dandy in the past life, but it got you to where you're going today in order for you to master this existence for where you're going next. What you did back then, great. Sounds lovely, makes us feel good, but it has really only led you to this point. From here now, is what's important is the work where you're doing today. Yes, the reason why is 72. 7 plus 2 equals 9. 9 equals completion and birth. Okay? When you get to 9, you've completed or you've been rebirthed. What happens is this: you've completed your state of the egg and the sperm coming together. Okay? That is one completion state. Then you have the trimester, those 3 different completion stages. For you to be completely physical, being prepared to manifest in this existence, now you have other cycles of life where it used to be that a lot of us lived our cycles every 7 years, then a part of us dies and then we transform. Not physically dies, metaphysically dies, and then you keep growing like that. It used to be 9, now it's been 7 and 5 because time has been shifted in many various ways. So 7-2 has always been a symbolic number. A symbolic number of completion or mastery. And they coded this in many of the mystical systems across the planet, whether it's the 72 Sabao of Set, or what they call the 72 demons, which really weren't demons. That's just how people interpret it today. Okay? Whether it's the 72 virgins, okay, which basically is 9 or being rebirthed again, okay? It's all a cycle, symbolic number of a cycle of reliving. In other words, you die and you live again every 9 years. All right? And there's more to that. It's also a sacred number in Freemasonry. 3 times 3 is 9. Enter apprentice, fellowcraft, master mason, yeah, on and on and on. Exactly. 72 virgins could also be hell. Imagine trying to have sex with all these 72, and every time she's a virgin, 72 times a day, no thanks, not happening. Truth behind you recommending many rituals for melanated people. Is this linked to why black magic is more common in Asia and Africa? Is there an advantage in some ways? Is there truth? Yes. True black magic is mastering the self. True black magic is going into the abyss of your subconscious mind and doing the work of excavating, digging out the things that are blocking us, chopping it, punching it, using a sledgehammer, knocking those obstacles that are buried deep in our subconscious mind. That's the true black magic, is then reprogram that subconscious mind so that the subjective world affects the objective world. Meaning your subconscious starts to affect the physical world you live in, and you start to materialize and manifest the things that you are needing. Understand something. When you work on the left-hand path, Luciferianism, black magic, whatever, you don't always get what you want. You get what you need. So people are sometimes disappointed because they do rituals over and over and they didn't get the desired result. It doesn't mean you failed, because what happens is if you really pay attention, the result happened. You just upset because you didn't get exactly what you wanted. What happens is the result did happen. It just happened in a way that it's what you need in your life, not what you necessarily want. I'm going to say it like this. Do you understand? I'm going to use this as an analogy. A lot of us say, oh, I have a type of guy or a type of woman we like, right? Sisters say they have a type of guy they like. A man says, I have a type of woman I like. Do you really know that most of the time the type of person you like is actually the worst person for you? Let that marinate in your cabeza, in your head for a while, people. The type of person you like is usually the worst person for you. And that, let me continue what that really I'm trying to say by that. We all want these things, but it's not necessarily what you want, because sometimes what you want could be more detrimental to you than beneficial. What you're receiving, what you're getting is really what you need. So some of y'all may do a ritual and say, okay, I want this, I want this kind of woman, I want this kind of man, and you get them, but you don't get them exactly the way you want it. Because there's always a test that comes with every result you get. So they're about 90% of everything you wanted. They're lacking 10%. But your ass was hell-bent on what you wanted so much. Are you going to bypass and let go of the 90% that's really what you need for your growth and transformation just because it's not exactly what you wanted? Think about that. That's true black magic. Digging in the crates. Like Cool DJ Red Alert would dig in the crates, or DJ Premier would dig in the crates for those jewels and jewels of them beats that could cause the ruckus, cause the crowd to go insane when it dropped, the needle drop. That's what you have to do, is dig in the crates of your subconscious mind for those things that are blocking you to cause the change in your life, and realize it's not always what I want that I'm going to get. It's more so what I need is what I'm going to get. All right? Understand that, and you'll be on your way to continue growth and transformation. Really understanding that fact will help you expand this consciousness and expand your life. That's when you cause the change. So it's good that you can do black magic. It's good that you can do necromancy. It's good that you can do all that. But at the end of the day, what is really necessary is not just doing those things, it's how those things apply to your growth and how they apply to your transformation, as being able to utilize it in an inward journey fashion. When I work with demons, y'all, I don't work with demons because I want to feel like I'm high and mighty and demon X, go over there and F up that person. That's a rare case. If somebody's affecting my life adversely and trying to hurt me, that's a rare case. I'm going to send some whip ass, that demon on some whip ass on the spiritual level. When I summon a demon, it's because there's a part of me that is needing work, and I know there's a blockage there, and that demon is specifically focused on being able to work that path of overcoming that blockage or that problem or that issue. That's when I work with that demon. It ain't for the high and mighty ego trip of, oh, I can do this and whoop your ass with it. It's more so I need that, the demon, the frequency and vibration and energy of that demon is in alignment with what I need for my personal growth. That's the difference, working the left-hand path as opposed to just being a sorcerer and magician and saying I'm some hot shit because I got Demon X to just represent. You understand? I didn't say DMX. I said Demon X. No, let me stop. Anyway. All right. Exactly, Shanice. You aren't... You in my head. Gotta get you out of my head, Shanice. Anyway, let me stop. You aren't growing until you go against your type and the things that make you comfortable. Exactly. On the left-hand path, if you feel uncomfortable, you ain't doing shit. I'm going to repeat that again. If you feel comfortable in the work you're doing, meaning it's not causing some kind of chaos, some kind of friction, some kind of change within you, you ain't doing shit. You should be able to challenge yourself. And to challenge yourself is to go against your type. To challenge yourself is to try something different. It's not always, oh, she got to have a fat ass and big titties, y'all. Sometimes you got to be real, bro, and be like, okay, she's tall and skinny. That's something different. That may be more what you need because you ain't going to be so caught on the physical and being some devouring vampire because of her body. You may actually be able to grow because you're more into her emotionally, mentally, and tune into that frequency that causes you to change. So you can stop being so damn freaky on the body all the time. You gotta challenge yourself. I remember about, what was it, 10 years back. I told you, I think I said this story one time. 10 years back, I challenged myself, y'all. I'm gonna say the story, so hold on. I challenged myself. My average woman that I've talked to is normally about 5'3" to 5'5". I'm about 5'10". All right? They're normally brown skin to dark skin, curvy, booty, the whole nine. So I challenged myself and I said, okay, I'm going to challenge myself and create my own experiment. I want to see what I can do and will I be able to go against my type and try something different. I've been doing this shit for years, y'all. Challenging myself doing the left-hand path stuff for years. So I'm going to share this. So, okay, mind you, I told you I'm 5'10". So I said, I'm going to manifest a tall woman. Yo, when I say tall, y'all about to hear how tall this female was. 6'3". I'm 5'10", y'all. 6'3". Skinny. To kiss her, I used to have to stand on the sidewalk while she was on the ground on the street. All right? So that was a challenge in itself. When I said, whoa, I really stepped outside the box. But it caused me to grow and change in a lot of ways because I was able to communicate and learn from this person on a beyond a physical level or a physical pleasurable level only. You understand? You gotta be able to tap in to challenging yourself. That's a challenge, y'all. Imagine me, I'm 5'10", this female 6'3". 6'3", I think, is like Kyrie Irving or something. He may look short compared to other dudes in basketball, but when you stand next to him in real life, he's a lot taller than you. You feel me? So you gotta understand, be able to do these things. I ain't telling you if you're a melanated person to go ivory and lily white, if that's not what you like. That doesn't mean you can't try something different. Like, okay, instead of, as a female, instead of talking to this thuggish, ruggish dude, let me get me some educated, nerdy boy. You get me? That's what I'm saying. Because people misinterpret that and then they be going super extreme, then blame me if something go wrong. I didn't tell you to do that. I'm just saying, try something different. You're used to these hardcore dudes, try some educated, nerdy dude. See how that goes. It may help you more than you realize. It may challenge you in ways you never thought about because they may be more analytical and really help challenge you in ways you would never challenge yourself. So that's one of the major goals. Dark Light says, is it true that most of us who are drawn to this path have walked this path in some form in another life? Yes, some way, shape, form, or fashion, you've already been drawn to this adversarial current. From many of the spiritual work I did, and when I found out some of the spirits that are connected to me, they were all adversarial, meaning they were all against society, all against the norm. One of the spirits was a female Congo sorceress. Okay? And she went against the norm in her tribe because she was bisexual. And in her tribe, that was not really looked upon as positive. She says, screw y'all. So understand, I got to deal with this spirit when she wants to wreak havoc with that energy. I got to deal with that. But it challenges me because it helps me think outside the box. This nice little neat box that we all create. You understand? But when on the left-hand path, you break. Listen, on the left-hand path, you break away from this gender shit. You break away from this sexual preference shit. You break away from all that stuff, and you realize that all that shit is just caging your mind and pigeonholing you within this nice little neat box that you think you've broken, but some way, somehow, you still stuck in it. You understand? So you start to understand, yo, all this stuff is BS shit. All right, what else? That's right, Wacky J. Understand and be honest with yourself and accept flaws. Begin the transformation. Yeah, it was pretty bad, Andre. Pretty bad, brother. I mean, I had to challenge my own self-esteem and everything because, yeah, I'm not used to that. So, of course, I had to challenge that within myself because I felt kind of embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? I was like, whoa, this is just something totally different. Well, that's correct, Omar. I will offer 1,000 versions of rituals. However, you have to craft it or adapt it to your own personal working as your own God and manifest it to your reality. There's more versions of rituals I could give y'all, but this is necessary only insofar as because one of these may be more of what is in line with you than the other version or the other version. So it's necessary to show or share different methodologies that may better be suited for your growth and transformation. You can't just use one path for every one person, just like there's not one diet for every one person, just like there's not one answer for every one person. I mean, for every person. Every individual vibrates differently. Every individual has some differences than the next. You have to find what works best for you. So as someone who's walked various paths, I share these things because one of these things may hit home, may gravitate. You may gravitate to it and say, that's me. I know some brother, I haven't seen him in a minute. I know he's busy working and everything, but this brother, Hansu, he strictly mostly works with the Kemetic path. Like he'll try different paths, but that's what he works. So when I talk about things like that, it resonates with him. Whereas I may talk about some jinn with somebody else and it may resonate with somebody else. I may talk about the Goetia with somebody else and it resonates with them. You understand? I may talk about Kali and it resonates with them. I talk about, it depends on the individual. There's various versions of everything, but I would do a disservice to y'all if I didn't present various versions and only presented my versions. That's not going to help y'all because it's my versions. So you have to be able to walk into many different versions to find which one most resonates with you for you to really do the work of mastering self. All right, Johnny, Mr. Kilroy. You once spoke about a staircase ritual. Can you explain your version? All right. There's various different versions of it. I'll explain one of the versions that I use the most often. Be in a dark room, as dark as possible, okay? And only have one candle on, a black candle. Face the candle and breathe 9 times, 9 backwards. Okay, there's a reason for that. When you count 1 to 9, your mind goes into this thought process as if it's elevating. You want to start descending, not ascending. So you breathe 9 times, but each breath you count a number backwards. So 9, 8, on and on. When you get to 1, mind you, the room is very dark. There's only a flickering 1 candle. When you get to 1, your mind's already in the process of tunneling into the subconscious. Then you visualize a spiral staircase. So you already started tunneling down and you see yourself descending on a spiral staircase to get to your subconscious mind. There's another version to that without using a staircase. Visualize a whirlpool of water, but make the water dark or a black water. Okay, only at the very wormhole, at the point, you'll see some flicker of light. Okay, so the candle represents that little flicker of light at the end of the wormhole, or let's say whirlpool. So do the breathing process and then see yourself riding the wave of the whirlpool down to that one little hint of light. Those are some of the steps you could take to tap into your subconscious mind, because when you get there, it'll expand you. Okay? So Andre says, I'm all over the place spiritually because my soul won't allow me to stick to one thing. That's a good thing. Some people may look at it as a bad thing because you never stay in one thing, but that's a good thing. If your soul is diverse like that, there's a reason for that. Understand this, people. Sometimes when you jump from thing to thing, it's because you have a governing body. And that governing body, true, it's the self, but it's your DNA. Your DNA explodes sometimes. And depending on your DNA, what ancestral groups you have in your DNA, it can lead you to jump from one thing for a while, then go to the next. I'll give you an example. My ancestral DNA, and I've said this plenty of times, my ancestors go back to Puerto Rico, but of course they go back before that. Puerto Rico, the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, are Taino. Taino are Native Americans, so to speak, okay? Then you had Taino who were somewhere of, African extract, Asian extract, whatever. Then you have people who were brought here and became slaves here, the Africans. So my percentage of African and the tribes, I have Ashanti tribe, which is from the Akan Nation. I have the Mabuti people of the Congo, and I have Yoruba, okay? That's in my DNA. Then I have Moroccan DNA with some Arab DNA as well. Then I have Spaniard DNA. The Spaniards that came to Puerto Rico, many of them were from southern Spain, which was my family was from, and the Canary Islands, where many of them were mixed with the Moors. Now, why is that important to understand? It's important to understand because 1 minute I'm straight doing some voodoo, some African tradition, right? But from a left-hand path perspective, next minute, I got the Arab spirit jumping out of my ass, okay? Wanting to work with jinn, all right? The next minute, I'm doing some Luciferian thing. The next minute, because I do have descendancy that goes back to Central Asia, more so Central India. Next minute, I want to work with Kali, Shiva, and everything else. Is it bad? No, that's my DNA. It's guiding me there because it's one, feeding the spirits. Two, it's expanding my conscious knowledge. And three, it's tying all the dots together or putting the pieces of the puzzle together on my matrix, my workings that is essential for my transformation, not so much anybody else's. So it's a good thing, Andre, because you understand it's a good thing because you're able to not only learn about all these systems, but you learn how it resonates with your DNA. You understand? That's what's important. Everybody, even most people, let's say, it's been proven that most people, African Americans, are about 75% African. Some have higher percentage, some have less. So even then, you may have Native American ancestry, European ancestry. And I know this for a fact because I know certain African Americans, they're like 90% African and like 8% European. And their 8% goes back to Norway. How the hell? It just, Norway's in there, okay? And then this explains why this individual loves Thor in the Marvel Universe, Loki, you understand? Loves all that shit. Like, really loves it, where they go read about it, study it. It's a part of your DNA. It's going to spark off. And what happens is normally because of the conscious crap, we tend to suppress that shit and embarrass that shit, and you're doing a disservice to yourself because you're not feeding, one, your ancestral spirit, and two, you're not understanding your own composition. So you do a disservice to yourself and you really hurt yourself in the process more than help yourself. So Nina says, yeah, they call us jumpers, like the movie Jumper, where you jump from place to place. Yes, we do. We jump, but we normally only jump after our spirit has had enough of what we've been doing for a while. I'm still working the voodoo necromancy. I do this all the time. That's not going to change. But my spirit, in working with Baum 70 recently, for some reason, popped off the Luciferian. That's how it works sometimes. Am I going to suppress it and say, oh, no, that's the white part of me, or that's the part of me that is just, no. You just take it in stride and say, okay, let me go in this and see what I didn't catch the first time around I was into Luciferianism. There's something I'm supposed to learn this time around, and I'm learning it. And I'm applying it more. In 2 weeks, y'all, I could be doing Sith. Talking about the Sith and the mythology and the system of the Sith and how it applies to you today. I could be doing that again. In the next month, I could be talking about the Avengers. If that's what it takes, that's what it's going to take to share this information. You understand? That's what it takes. That's what it takes to share this information and you resonate with what it is that helps you or gravitate to. All right. Any other questions, Joel? Because I know y'all got questions. We'll try to wrap it up in a little bit so I can watch my Giants and my Yankees. They playing, and I need to catch them later on before the game over. Right now, they're about at halftime. All right. Peace, Lord. Couple questions. Couple questions before 9 o'clock. Anybody got a couple questions? Yes, ask me in the email because I'll share documents and information on how to actually work with that. Just know this, Omar. When people go to the masjid, the imam or sheikh, they're basically taking everybody's energy. This is why the masjid, the synagogue, the church are shaped the way they are because they conduct sound, they harness sound, vibrations, frequencies, and energy. The pastor, the reverend, imam, the rabbi, they're sucking up that energy and charging themselves up. And some of the shit that's happening. So I'll answer that when you email in more detail. Now, distance is not a factor, only if you let it be a factor in your mind. Always remember that. All right, let me see. Let me see. All right, Perfection 933. You're of Haitian descent. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to work with Voodoo. Now, if that's what you're gravitating to, then so be it. One of the first to always work with is Papa Legba. He sits at the crossroads. Usually, you have to go to the crossroads to really figure out your path in life, to communicate with spirits or anything like that. However, you could also work with Dambala and the serpent energy of Dambala. If that's more of a conscious path for you, you can work with Baun Samdi if it's communicating with spirits and working with that energy or frequency. You can work with any of that. If it's not just that, you got to find, okay, well, what else do I gravitate to? What else am I attracted to? If it's, let's say, Kemet, you work with Set. One of the basic and most important steps to take if you're working with Kemet in the left-hand path is work with Set, Tech, the isolated consciousness, mastering yourself. That's essential on this path. All right, woke media. There's always a lot of books I could suggest. But like I tell everybody, email me. I'll send you the documents. I have a buku PDF documents on stuff to get you rolling with left hand path, really going. I send you the documents for a reason. You can read it. If it's something you like, get the hard copy. If it's something that you ain't feeling, don't waste your money. That's why I have a lot of PDF versions so that you can see for yourself. If it's something I really like, I gotta have the hard copy. Because for me, ain't nothing like the hard copy because I can highlight, I can put my notes in there and everything else, and I can use it when I'm, if I'm needing it for a ritual or something else, it's there. So the PDF, I send people all this to help them basically find their way. I have buku PDF files on the left-hand path and different things. From there, like I said, it helps you say, I'm going to purchase this or not purchase this. It's basically best that way so you don't waste your money and get a book and then be disappointed later. You could preview it and you know what to do from there. Okay, Johnny Kilroy says, so when you find things you want to change, how did you begin to change the things in that affected you so as to fix the root chakra so you could fix things at the root? All right, Johnny, let me say this. You got to take inventory. And the way to take inventory is one of the things you have to do is you have to do rituals in the dark. And what I mean by that is you go in the dark and you meditate. If you don't work with archetypes, it's fine. You could just meditate and program yourself as you're counting from 9 to 1. Program yourself as you're doing the breathing exercise. Program yourself and say, I'm going deeper into my subconscious mind to bring out what I need to focus on. Once you do that, and you go into the meditative state, you already programmed your mind before you got there. Once you get to the meditative state, everything will start to come up. When you're done, journal that shit right away. And you'll know exactly, you took inventory of exactly what you needed to do and what you needed to focus on. And then you'll know what steps to take next. So let's say you find you have an anger issue. Okay? You find where the anger issue started. Did it start in your childhood, teenage years? What exactly created your anger issue? Okay? Then what you do is you start to find ways to reprogram your reaction when you're angry. What I mean by that is sometimes we're angry, you want to get violent, confrontational. What you start to learn to do is when you feel yourself in that angry moment, you internalize it. And what do I mean by that? Instead of reacting in a vicious manner, you start to internalize it and say, why the F am I angry? And how can I use this to my benefit? I'll give you an example. I used to have very bad anger or temper. I learned to take my anger and focus it and internalize it on myself when I'm being lazy, when I'm not accomplishing the goals I laid out, when I'm not finishing the work that's necessary. And when I get angry at myself for being that kind of way, which I don't like, it pushes me to stop being lazy and get the job done. That's just an example. It's like using alchemy. It's like transmuting your actions and reactions and behavior and creating a new way to utilize those emotions to be beneficial instead of harmful. All right. No problem, Perfection 933. Just email me and I'll hook you up with something private. All right. Um, right, Johnny. We just share from our experience and the different paths we walk, so that there's an alternative out there to what's been there before us. The people talking for years and telling you about history and science and mathematics, but never giving you the tools to utilize your own key to transform yourself. So that's what we chose to do, is utilize a way to get this information to y'all, but give y'all the key that's already in your hand and help you use your own power to turn that key for your own mastering, to master yourself. No problem. All right, no problem, Wacky J. I do my best. Obsidian Goddess, good, good. I'm happy you like that. There's more to come. Let me share my email here now because I'm about to get off here, and I'll be on Sunday, and we'll be talking about what is the light in the dark, what is darkness, and what is your power. What is the power that resides with darkness? We're going to bust up a lot of this religious crap that the darkness is evil, it's wrong, and all this. We're also going to bust up our own beliefs about dark, because some of us, even on the left-hand path, still have some programming about the dark. We're going to learn what darkness really is and how your true power lies in going into that dark or that shadow. We're going to go over all of that on Sunday, all right? So that we can start correcting the myth of this blinding light of illusion and learn the true power in the darkness. We got to get into that so we can really start to get into some developing work. Okay. I'm putting a lot of stuff together so that we can have eventually a covenant, of different things like that. I'm not really into a group thing. It's more so developing so y'all have something to say. We as melanated people created our own shit. We don't always have to rely on other people for this or that. But more so, it's also so you could take the journey and the path and actually go through an initiation. If you don't want to join the Freemasons or Rosicrucians, we're gonna do initiations for y'all so that you can feel what it's like to actually experience an initiation and what benefits you get from an initiation. So there's a lot of works coming, but like I said, I have a couple things in the work. I have a lot of jobs, meaning I run two businesses and I'm constantly doing jobs for these businesses. So I don't always have the time. So when I get the time, I do the work and I try to do these lectures to keep the vibration movement going. All I ask of y'all is share this information with those who are deserving, not those who are not. Let them know about the web, about the YouTube channel, and spread the word for those who you feel are deserving, not some idiots who are going to come here just causing havoc. All right. So I'm about to get off this. I'll see y'all Sunday. Trina, I'll see you mañana, tomorrow down in Miami for the ritual in South Florida. And anybody else who is on the list to go there, I'll see y'all. If not, see y'all Sunday. Peace.